Every year, there are a handful of movies that I see and I like well enough, or at least find interesting enough that I want to talk about them, but not quite enough to justify a full 10 or 15-minute breakdown on this channel. They're the films that didn't spark a whole essay in my brain, but still deserve a little space, a little attention, a little moment in the spotlight. So today, I'm doing a kind of rapid fire roundup. Quick thoughts on some of the 2025 releases that I never got around to covering in depth on the channel. Think of this as like a little bit of a catch-up session, all the movies that slipped through the cracks, gathered into one place. This is sort of part one of what I'm calling the I Saw These, I Promise 2025 edition. So, all right, without further ado, let's get into it. There's a lot to love about this film. The thrills, the metaphor, the effects, the tone, it's all there. However, I think this is one of those instances where I found myself craving more, craving for the film to go further with its ideas a bit too much. I can't say I felt satisfied by the end of this film, probably due to the fact that it could be seen a mile away, so far, in fact, that it's all over the marketing material. Not only that, but the whole third act of this film kind of crawls to its conclusion, while simultaneously leaving too many stones unturned. My girlfriend and I were scratching our heads at some of the lore and logic questions the film presents, and while a film leaving lingering questions isn't necessarily a deal breaker, it does add to the feeling of unfulfillment. I do, however, want to give major props to Alison Brie and Dave Franco for their awesome physical performances in this. You could do so much to draw me into a film just by having your characters writhe around on the ground and look grimy and sweaty and really sell the whole "this is really happening" vibe. And also, being that they're a married couple in real life, one would hope that their chemistry would be electric, and it certainly was, even if they're playing a couple whose chemistry is sort of on the fritz. And to add to that, the way that the director and company are able to keep each horror beat pretty refreshing while admittedly a little repetitive is pretty fun to watch. Pretty much from the hairball and the shower scene all the way to the end, there's a great progression of the body horror. And also on that note, I'm sure someone way smarter than me is already finishing up their dissection of the sudden renaissance of mainstream body horror in cinema and what it says about us as a society. What feels like it starts with the substance really seems like it isn't slowing down anytime soon. Horror in general is in an upswing at the moment. And while it isn't a genre that I sought out for a large portion of my life, it is fascinating to step back and intellectualize in a broader context. Anyway, the tone of this film is oscillating between that "this is really happening" vibe to "it's okay to not take this super seriously" in the blink of an eye. Franco and Brie were really honing in on their comedic chops in certain parts of this film without straying too far from the core tone. One more ding on the movie, in my view, was that the dialogue, especially in the beginning, before they moved to their house, was painfully cheesy and hard to ignore. And to add to that, the sense of scope in this film seems so minor that I found myself wanting more characters. There are really only 3 characters in this whole movie, and that sense of the story being so minuscule started to feel like sitting in a restaurant, being halfway through the meal and being told that they're sold out of all the desserts on the menu. Like, okay, I guess I'll just keep enjoying the meal, but I was looking forward to the chocolate mousse. All in all, this was fun. A great date night movie. For some, not so much. And it features a concept that can make up for a lot of the pitfalls of the horror genre, or of this film specifically. Okay, this one was a swing and a miss for me. I've never had much trouble with the concept of remakes. Cinema is full of them, but given that Akira Kurosawa's High and Low has been lodged into my brain since I watched it about 6 months ago, it's fair to say I had very, very high hopes for Spike Lee's remake. The story feels ripe for reinterpretation in 2025 with its deep undercurrents of class and social tension. But in this version, that tension barely registers. Let's start with the changes. For starters, the introduction to the kidnapping comes with the same dramatic weight as a wet fart. Just an inaudible phone call that Denzel gets on the balcony. In general, there was so little done with the phone calls between David, Denzel's character, and the kidnapper. In the original version, the poster is Gondo, Toshiro Mifune, on the phone with the kidnapper. The entire first half of the film is full of negotiations and hearing the kidnapper make demands. In this one, most of that is done off camera. In High and Low, the phone itself might as well be a character. Here, it's nothing. The voyeuristic edge in this film is dulled too. Kurosawa gave us that brilliant, goosebump-inducing moment when the family and the police realize that they're currently being watched, and then there's the panic, the sudden collapse to the floor, the blinds being snapped shut. It's a primal fear, the rich suddenly vulnerable, exposed to the gaze of someone beneath them on the social ladder. That one moment condenses the entire theme of High and Low into a single image: power and wealth instantly undermined by the knowledge that they're not untouchable. In Highest to Lowest, that gut punch gets flattened to ASAP Rocky casually mentioning that he follows David's wife on Instagram. He knows her taste in jewelry, her outfits, her curated life, and sure, in theory, that could be updated social commentary. The way wealth now flaunts itself online, practically begging for scrutiny, but the way it's delivered here has no bite. It plays less like a sinister revelation and more like casual banter. And then there's the police procedural, which in Kurosawa's film is half the thrill: the slow, methodical unraveling of the case, the frustrations of police work. Here, the police are sidelined entirely, written as a kind of bumbling afterthought so Denzel can play lone hero and turn into Batman by the end of the movie. I knew we were in trouble when I saw the head investigator, an actor I'd never seen before, and he's paired with Dean Winters, the Allstate Mayhem guy. And sure enough, the cops fade into background noise, leaving Denzel to do everything himself. And then the investigation is reduced to pure coincidence. In Kurosawa's film, the police work is a whole movie within the movie. It's painstaking, it's procedural, it's drawn out to the point that you feel every ounce of their frustration and exhaustion. There's an unforgettable sequence where the cops tail the kidnapper through the neon-soaked streets of Yokohama, following him into the shadows of flop houses and drug dens, slowly descending into Japan's underbelly. It's not glamorous detective work, it's long nights, radio conversations, and the slow drip of dread as they piece together who this man is and what he's capable of. And the kicker, the kidnapper killing off his own co-conspirators by intentionally lacing their drugs, this grotesque, calculated move to keep the ransom for himself, that's high drama. That's moral rot. That's tension. Now imagine that transposed onto New York City streets. I certainly can. 8 million stories, endless dark avenues, a metropolis already bursting with income disparity, addiction, and the very themes that this remake is allegedly about. The opportunity was right there. A tense late night chase through Queens or Manhattan or the Bronx, a descent into underground clubs, a glimpse at how the city chews up its poorest. Instead, we get Denzel recognizing a voice on an Apple Music playlist, a 1 in a million fluke that bypasses all the meat and marrow of an actual investigation. So long, slow burn, hello, shortcut. And then there's Spike Lee's stylistic flourishes, which here feel more distracting than invigorating. The score is gorgeous in isolation, but deployed like a sledgehammer, telegraphing every emotional beat until I was watching the horns and the violins instead of the actors on screen. The performances swing between strong, Denzel, Jeffrey Wright, ASAP Rocky, and just baffling. Dean Winters screaming into a police radio felt like community theater night. That said, some things do land. The money drop-off scene crackles, the New York setting feels lived in, and the Denzel ASAP Rocky confrontations are pretty electric. But they're islands in a film that too often undercuts its own tension. Let's be honest, most of my disappointment comes from comparison, which isn't always fair, but it is unavoidable. Reviewing a remake is always tricky because there's this balancing act between letting it stand on its own and acknowledging the shadow it's inevitably working under. It's almost a lose-lose situation. Lean too close to the original and you get accused of being derivative. Stray too far and you risk losing the very spark that made the story worth revisiting in the first place. And look, plenty of remakes have worked. Some have even surpassed their source material, so it's not like it can't be done. I'm not asking for a shot-for-shot recreation. I wouldn't want that. But at its core, it feels like Spike Lee and I looked at Kurosawa's High and Low and came away with two polar opposite ideas of what a 2025 version should look like. And that's not inherently a bad thing. In fact, it's encouraging that there's diversity of vision and space for interpretation, that artists can wrestle with the same material and come to such different conclusions. And look, Spike Lee is a legend, and nothing here changes that. But part of respecting an artist is being honest, and for me, this one just didn't work. I found Splitsville to be very enjoyable. The four leads are awesome and hilarious. The comedy in this is very much my speed. In many ways, I was the target demographic for the comedy in this film. The whip-smart, fast-talking dialogue, jokes being slipped out almost in the background, like Robert Altman mixed with some Coen brothers mixed with Wes Anderson. The pacing in this film kind of drags in the back half, and I'm not sure how crazy I am about the ending, but all in all, this is a fun romp of a film. The whole trope of the stuck-up girlfriend or wife who leaves the nebbish man for more excitement only for her to come around and love him now that he's a changed man was a bit predictable and annoying, especially when I thought that Ashley, the character played by Adria Arjona, didn't really do much to be redeemed in the end other than sing the fray. I guess the point of the film maybe is that redemption isn't necessary when someone's unfaithfulness is a result of their stilted sex life or an exploration of one's non-monogamous fantasies. I don't know. I could forgive it when the film is played out with characters behaving and speaking in their own unique language and patterns. The dialogue in this film often feels like Wes Anderson-esque in a way that certain actions don't generate the response you'd expect. Like when Julie, the Dakota Johnson character, sees Carrie and Paul fighting in the yard and she just stands muted, arms folded instead of ripping them apart. Characters speak their minds, and that's often the source of the humor in this film. Again, this one feels like it's spinning its wheels a little bit in the latter half, like we're just circling the drain and the same conflict keeps rearing its head again and again. But this is ultimately not a huge deal when the jokes consistently keep coming and new characters enter the frame, like Nicholas Braun as a mentalist. So yeah, Splitsville is fun stuff. Hopefully Michelangelo Covino and Kyle Marvin get to keep making projects if they're this clever and entertaining. At some point, Darren Aronofsky must have just decided, yeah, I'm not going to be an auteur anymore. Or maybe he never was in the first place. I don't even know what a Darren Aronofsky film is supposed to be anymore. Requiem for a Dream felt like one, The Wrestler definitely, Black Swan 2, Mother for sure. But then you've got things like Noah, The Fountain, The Whale, and now Caught Stealing, which honestly feels like a lost 2003 crime thriller someone dug out of a DVD bargain bin. Like an Americanized Guy Ritchie movie with a little Aronofsky brutality sprinkled in. Anyway, Caught Stealing is messy, sometimes goofy, occasionally frustrating, and I had a really good time with it. Austin Butler plays Hank, the everyman who accidentally stumbles into this nightmare week of mobsters, dirty cops, and impossible to survive situations, all because he agreed to watch his neighbor's cat. Austin Butler is great here. He panics like a real person, but he's scrappy enough to keep me rooting for him. Honestly, he might be my favorite star on the rise right now. Elvis, Dune 2, The Bike Riders, now this. The dude is just making cool choices. The movie itself feels like a weird odyssey. Every few hours, Hank bumps into a new flavor of gangster or psycho who's after the same pile of money, and every time you think he's about to catch a break, something even worse smacks him down. That sort of fatalistic no way out feeling is where you do feel Aronofsky lurking. There are gut punches of violence, gruesome and casual in a way that makes you wince, and not in an over-the-top fun way. That said, this movie's got a lot of little nitpicks, the kind of stuff that would have flown in 1999, but just sort of sticks out like a sore thumb now. The dialogue could be corny, the plot about who's chasing the money and why kind of goes in one ear and out the other. And for the love of God, why can't movies ever get voicemails right? There are multiple scenes of Hank listening to his mom's messages on the answering machine, and they're so obviously scripted and have a way of sucking you right out of the film. Just let actors record them like real voicemails. But then, you know what? Zoe Kravitz shows up, Vincent D'Onofrio and Liev Schreiber play two Hasidic heavies in the third act, and Austin Butler is running around New York City with a baseball bat, and suddenly, I don't really care about the logic holes. I'm just having fun. If I have one bigger complaint, it's that the movie doesn't feel quite grimy enough. It's rated R, yeah, and there's swearing and there's blood, but sometimes it feels like there's this PG-13 filter over it, like the camera flinches when it should have leaned in. I wanted it to be nastier, dirtier, more sweat under the fingernails, but still, the tension works, especially with the cat. Movies keep putting cats in peril lately, and as a cat dad, I can confirm it works. My blood pressure was spiking every time that cat was on screen. And also, shout out to the soundtrack too. Hearing Idols blast through a Darren Aronofsky action movie was not on my bingo card, but it fits perfectly. So yeah, this scratched that very specific itch of regular guy trapped in a crime nightmare movies, the ones where survival is the only real goal. It reminded me of the kind of thing I'd stumble across on cable as a teenager, something playing on FX at 2 p.m. on a Saturday, and I'd stop whatever I was doing and just let it play out in front of me, flaws and all. Darren Aronofsky might not be chasing auteur status, but if this is him just having fun, I'm cool with it. Man, long-ass review. This movie is just so much fun. While it might have the heart of the original, it toys with the spirit in a way that is sometimes frustrating, but never dull. Peter Dinklage is awesome in this. Kevin Bacon is awesome in this. The kills could have been bloodier. The story got me choked up at times. There's one gag in here that made my theater lose its mind. Hint, it involves a chicken head. And like the original, we're dropped into this trauma world and forced to accept that this is a place that's less our reality and more Grand Theft Auto Online reality. Do I wish this was a touch more subversive or gross or horny like the original? Sure, why not? It did feel a bit like a neutered version of the original, made by filmmakers who were very conscious of how people would react to this film, a method that seems antithetical to the original's ethos, but frankly, it doesn't matter so much. It's got something to say, and it says it in a quirky, fun, occasionally bonkers way. Definitely check this out, and also check out the original Toxic Avenger from the 80s. That's going to do it for part one of these sort of quick reviews of movies that I didn't get around to talking about in depth in 2025. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know what you thought of any of these movies down in the comments. Let me know why I am definitely wrong about Spike Lee's Highest to Lowest. I'm sure that that movie has its defenders out there, but it really just did not work for me. And Spike Lee is one of those filmmakers who lives near and dear to my heart. So I have nothing against Spike Lee. That one just did not work for me. But when you're done down in the comments, don't forget to like this video, hit the subscribe button, and hit the bell to be notified when new videos come out on this channel. And then when you're done with that, go ahead and follow me over on Letterboxd so you can see what I'm watching, when I'm watching it, and you'll see a lot of these reviews well before they go up on the channel. But anyway, that's going to do it for me. Part two, where I talk about more movies from 2025 that I didn't get to on the channel, will be coming out shortly. I'll see you all there.